So hello and welcome back. My name is Ajay Naik,
And I'm Manasvi Priyadarshi.
and we are back with one more Hack UI5 libraries.
Yeah, like we said last time, we'll be making it a series.
Yeah. So this time, Manasvi, tell us what we are doing in the webinar.
So basically, we are exploring how to use Grunt while we are creating our own UI5 libraries.
Yeah.
So how to use Grunt to basically optimize your library so that you can push it for say production or maybe to some package manager so
Yeah.
that people can use it.
Yeah. So Grunt is a new thing if you are a UI5 developer, because most of the UI5 developers are from ABAP background, and when they start learning libraries, these JavaScript libraries, they might be learning JavaScript for first time. If you are very prominent in the JavaScript world, has experience with Node.js and other JavaScript library, you might be well aware about what is Grunt and what it does. So in this specific webinar, we will be exploring the capabilities which people use to build UI5 libraries, and a lot of automation is done by Grunt. So let's start with what is Grunt, and then we will understand why Grunt is used,
Yes.
or why are we saying that, okay, hack UI5 libraries with Grunt.
Grunt.
So let's go ahead and switch the screen here. Yeah. So Manasvi, in a single word, if we define Grunt.
Yeah, it's a task runner for JavaScript.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the simple one-word answer. Okay, what is actually Grunt? Apart from its very aggressive-looking logo,
Yes.
what it basically does is it automates a lot of things.
Yeah, there are many tasks that you need to perform when you are creating a library. So to automate it, like you need to perform it several times. It's repetitive.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do it all by yourself manually every time. So
Yeah.
you need to have an automation for that. That's what Grunt is for.
Yeah. So what happens when you are actually working on your development environment? Imagine you are a developer and you are actually creating UI5 libraries. So what happens is you are doing a lot of modification changes, but that is actually the development code. When it actually should be shipped or maybe used in production, those codes should be as optimized as possible.
Yes.
Plus, you have to make sure that there is no error whatsoever present in the library. It should be as correct as it should be, because you don't want a version of a library released with a bug in it. So
Yes.
all those activity of minification, linting is done and automated by your Grunt JavaScript libraries. I think.
Yes.
Can I call it library, or it is?
It's a task runner.
Yeah.
It contains a lot of plugins that helps you perform those tasks.
Yeah.
So those can be referred to as libraries, but I think Grunt is just a task runner. It's a framework that helps you
Yeah.
run those libraries on your own library.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is one of the things which any developer would want, is like some automation. That is
Yes.
like the magic of development, where you define the activity and you run through one of the automated tasks. You can spend some amount of activity just to define those tasks, and every time you want to build a proper version which can be shipped or maybe can be used in the production. For imagine if I wrote some code for my sandbox, code from development and code for production, there's a difference, because the
Yes.
code which is running in production should be the best version of it. And then you can do experiment in sandbox, and the development system can have some of the
Yeah, that's quite true. Like Grunt gives you an option to kind of separate what kind of tasks should you run for the development environment, what kind of tasks should you run for the production environment.
Yeah.
So those that's where you can break down your automations basically.
Yeah.
For different kind of activities.
Exactly. So if we see and go inside a little bit on Grunt and see in the context of UI5, we already know that previous
Yes.
webinar. If you have not seen that, you can just see Hack UI5 libraries, which we did in the previous week. It will be available in YouTube as well, and ui5cn.com.
Yeah.
What we actually did is we extended our library with the Eclipse component.
Yeah,
And additional,
we
yeah.
built an ellipse.
Ellipse, yeah.
Yeah.
Ellipse.
So yeah, that was a library we built, and you know you can just use it to define your own ellipse with
Yeah.
certain parameters that we defined. And maybe this time what we are going to do is minify that library so
Yeah.
that it occupies a lesser size, and when someone is actually using my library,
Mhm.
my library loads really fast.
Yeah. So this is something which we will be doing. We will, if you are not present in the previous webinar, then you can watch those later, because we will not be actually modifying any codes there. We will be actually automating some of the activities like minification,
Yes.
so it can be really deployed in the production.
What I can do is I'll just give them an idea of how the folder structure is,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that it's easier for you to follow.
Yeah, that will be perfect in that
Yeah,
way.
but it's not really related to what we did in the last week, so there's no need to worry.
Yeah,
You can just follow up with this.
Yeah, exactly. So that will be a small glimpse of how Grunt will be utilized
Yes.
to automate or run those tasks. And we are only picking one of the activity, which is minification here,
Yes.
and only to a subset of the libraries, which is Ellipse, which we
Yeah.
built previous week.
Previous
Um,
week.
when you are working on, if you are a code developer in UI5 or any other different libraries based on JavaScript, then there will be a lot of libraries which need to be minified, and that takes time. So we just reduce the scope only to few libraries, so you are able to see how you can use Grunt when you are actually building your libraries for deployment.
And even the documentation is pretty good.
Yeah, for Grunt.
For Grunt. So if you know how to do one thing, you can obviously pick up on the other things too.
Yeah. So if you are not from SAP background and you just want to learn about Grunt, then I think this webinar will be also useful, because we will be also showcasing how you can do with Eclipse, and those steps are same, I think, in the same if you are using any other libraries.
If you're using any other libraries, the step would be the same, just the parameters would change a bit, because you have to define the path where the JavaScript file is, or maybe the CSS file is.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the things that you need to modify, but the basic structure remains the same.
Yeah, basic structure will be same. So let's look into the steps which we are going to perform here live, or you can also start doing it with us.
Yeah.
And if you have any question, you can live ask us. We are here to answer.
Okay, so if you could just switch to
Yeah.
my screen, I'll show them how to do it.
Yeah.
So first of all, this is, as you can see on my screen, this is the Grunt's web page, and it gives you a lot of information about how to use Grunt and how to get started. Like there's a get started link right here, and it gives you a detailed description of how do you use it.
Yeah.
So you have a very good documentation of it, like I told you before.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing that you will need in your system is npm. That's Node Package Manager, so which you can download from Node's website. That's nodejs.org/en/download, because I'm using English as my language. So whatever language suits you, you can do that. So as you can see, they have three different installation for different machines: Windows, Mac, and Linux. Well, you can also check out our Node and Angular course. We have gone in depth into how to install these and how to use this. So you can just go ahead and install npm from here. Then what you'll need next is Grunt CLI.
Yeah.
So this is the GitHub page of Grunt CLI.
We will be also giving you a link below this description of the video.
Yeah.
So you can actually check it out.
So all you need to do once npm has been installed is npm install -g, that's global, Grunt CLI, so that you can use the Grunt CLI from wherever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So this will be some of the steps which will be prerequisite, and when you install this npm, those details instructions are given in our Node.js course. You can also check out that course. It's one of the best course of Node.js available online. So good to go ahead with Node if you are from SAP background, because a lot of technology shifts are moving towards JavaScript, and Node.js and AngularJS are some of the things which you should be well aware about. So let's go ahead and
what I can do is just show you, like you can just run this command.
Yeah.
I can just show you how to run it.
yeah.
Like if you are doing it from inside Eclipse, then just open the terminal.
Yeah.
So I'll be working on the custom ellipse project
Yeah.
which we created last week.
So you can show also what are the folder structure which involves.
Yeah, I'll just show them how to install it, and then we will go into it.
Yeah.
So I'll just open the terminal.
Yeah.
Just right click on it and go to show in, and then you can click on terminal.
Yeah.
From here you can just run npm install -g grunt CLI. Now this is already installed on my system, so
Yeah.
I can just run it. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to show you is how is the folder structure of custom CLI. Okay, it's showing me some error because it has some permission access error. Actually my npm is installed in the root, so I need to put a sudo before that.
Yeah.
But you can just run it.
Yeah.
Grunt CLI.
Yeah. Yeah. So now there's no error. Yeah.
Yes, and as you'll see that it has been installed.
Yeah.
Okay, so once this has been done, you are good to go and use Grunt.
Yeah.
Basically.
So the first step is to install Grunt with the
CLI,
npm
so
command.
Yeah, so that you can use the Grunt commands on your terminal basically.
Yeah.
That's why we use Grunt CLI.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was the project that we made last week.
Mhm.
So it's custom ellipse.
Mhm.
What it does is we have created a library for ellipse. So this is our view custom ellipse. So
Mhm.
ellipse.view.js and ellipse.controller.js.
Mhm.
We haven't done much modification here.
Mhm.
Now as you can see, we have a folder here called my,
Mhm.
and inside we have another folder called own.
Yeah.
And then we have two files here, two
Mhm.
JavaScript files. One is library.js,
Mhm.
which kind of loads my ellipse library and
Mhm.
initiates it.
Mhm.
And then we have our ellipse.js file
Mhm.
where we have defined how an ellipse should be placed on the UI.
Mhm.
And we have the index.html page.
Yeah.
So that's all we have in this project.
So basically, we have extended the library with this new components, which is ellipse.js. So defining how ellipse will be looking like,
Exactly.
and like what will be rendered in the browser if we use ellipse.
Yes.
my.own.ellipse, this custom component in UI5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so if we come back to the presentation here, so the first step is to install npm, and then the second step is to
Install Grunt
Grunt CLI, yeah.
Yes.
So basically, we are going to minify and prepare these two libraries,
Yeah.
and I think for the preparation side, we are only going to show.
I'll also want to point out here that you can use the normal Grunt in Open UI5,
Yeah.
but what SAP guys have done is they have created their own version of it.
Mhm.
That's Grunt Open UI5, as you can see here.
Yeah.
And they have wrapped up everything very nicely so that you have to do very less things, and they have given a lot of customization options.
Mhm.
If you go through it, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So still, I think we have to create preload component files.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where I was coming at. So as you can see here, we have something called Open UI5 preload.
Yeah.
So what happens here in UI5 is, if I go back to the project,
Yeah.
and you can see we have library.js file.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm running this app in my browser, say I just do a web app preview, and I'll just show you which libraries are loaded here. You can just go to network. Okay, and we'll do a reload here. Okay. So as you can see, we have a red colored library preload.js,
Yeah.
a library preload.json, and library.js, and then it loads ellipse.js.
Yeah, yeah.
So what happens is whenever we are running a UI5 application, first of all it searches for library preload.js.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If it doesn't get that, it falls back to library preload.json, and if it doesn't get that too, then it falls back to library.js. So library preload.js is basically the minified version of library.js.
Yeah.
So this creation of this is something that we are going to do here using this Grunt OpenUI5 library.
Yeah. So I think when you were sharing this GitHub page, I was not actually showed. I was not really showing your machine. So can you repeat the part where you were presenting this GitHub page?
Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So this is the Grunt OpenUI5 plugin that has been made by
custom made by for UI5 libraries itself.
OpenUI5 libraries basically. So what it does is it is basically wrapping up a lot of tasks into these tasks like OpenUI5 theme and
Minification.
OpenUI5 preload.
Okay. Yeah.
So minification comes under preload only.
Okay.
So
yeah.
minification has been packaged inside this wrapped
a
inside
subtask or a
subtask
yeah.
of it. Yes.
So when you create this preload files, then minification is. I think these preload files are created by Grunt itself.
Yes.
Okay. And then while creating this preload files, Grunt also minifies all the existing codes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so like when you open your UI5 libraries, like in the last step of the previous webinar, we showed you how to export all the libraries as a resource folder.
Yeah.
And then you might see a lot of preloads, like files there. And those preload files are actually created in this step.
Okay. So what we are going to do here is we are going to use OpenUI5 preload property of Grunt OpenUI5 to basically minify our library.js into library preload.js.
Okay.
Okay. So what we need to do here is also add a library file called library preload.js.
Yeah.
Now to do that, you will need two extra files here. One would be package.json.
Yeah.
So package.json will be where all the dependencies would be put.
Yeah.
And then you'll need a gruntfile.js.
Yeah.
Now gruntfile.js is the one that Grunt looks into gruntfile.js and sees which tasks to perform, and accordingly it performs that task.
Okay. So basically all the tasks which are mentioned in gruntfile.js will be actually performed step by step.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can actually use the CLI here to perform one of the tasks there.
Okay. So not really doing 10 activities which are mentioned in this grunt file.
Exactly. You can if you are from a C background, maybe you can relate it to makefile.
Yeah.
Just like we have grunt file here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the first thing that we are going to do is create a file called package.json. So there are multiple ways of creating it. You can simply create a file called package.json, or you can run a command called npm init. It will create a package.json file for you, and it will ask some of the questions like what do you want the certain properties to be. And like once you provide it, it will automatically create your package.json. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead with npm init. Okay. So as you can see, it's asking for name. So you can just press enter if you want it to be custom ellipse, or if you want it to be something else, you can just write it here.
Okay.
Then it'll ask you for a version. We can give it a version 1.
Or default will be 1.0.0. Yeah.
So it'll ask for description. So we can just name it exploring Grunt.
Okay.
And it will ask for the entry point. We don't really require this. You can just remove it from your package.json file too. We don't need this one to
Git
this
repository,
one
if
here.
you have, then you can.
If you have Git repository, then you can
Mhm.
probably mention it. You can probably mention your own name as author.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it will ask for license. Even this is not required, and it will just ask you if this is okay.
Yeah.
And it has kind of created package.json here.
Mhm.
I just need to refresh here so
Mhm.
that I'm able to see.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now if you see here, so basically the major things that you require here are these three.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, name, version, and description. The others are not really that important as of now.
Mhm.
Okay, and the next thing that we need here is another property called dev dependencies. So these are the development dependencies, and grunt is something that you use only during development.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so you need to put them inside dev dependencies
Mhm.
property. Now I'll be adding a few dependencies here. So
Mhm.
the first dependency here is grunt,
Mhm.
because that's what we are using basically. And you can just go for the latest version. You can write latest here, and you can add all those dependencies inside package.json, and then run npm install, and it would just install everything that is inside this dev dependencies property.
Yeah. So what are the things which can be present inside the dev dependencies for a
So
project?
the first of all, we need grunt.
Okay. Mhm.
The second thing that we'll need is grunt open UI5.
Okay.
Now I have not put grunt open UI5 because I want to show you another way to put things inside dev dependencies
Okay.
property.
So basically, when you are talking about this dependencies,
Yeah.
so which files is being dependent on grunt?
Okay. Pardon me, I didn't get your question.
So, for example, when we were creating this package.json in this project,
Yeah.
then we are having a dev dependencies. So, what?
So like say minification. We are
Okay,
going to
yeah.
we are going to use this grunt open UI5
Yeah, yeah.
plugin, right? Now grunt open UI5 plugin is dependent on grunt.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we will be requiring grunt too.
Yeah.
Now this whole project is dependent on grunt open UI5 for minification.
Yeah.
That's why we require grunt open UI5 too.
Yeah.
So that's why we are putting them inside the dependencies property.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Okay. So if I run npm install, it will just check the values inside dev dependencies, and it will just install these specific dependencies.
Okay.
Now, as you can see, we have put latest here, so it will just install the latest version of it. If you want a specific version, you can just specify that version.
Version name. Yeah, yeah.
So as you can see, these are all the files that have been installed here.
Mhm.
So these are a lot of files, and as you can see, it's grunt at the rate 1.0.1. So
Mhm.
1.0.1 is basically the latest version of grunt. And if you go back here, go right up, and it says this plugin requires grunt
0.4.
0.4.5
Or latest maybe.
or more than that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So now that we have this installed, we
Yeah.
can just refresh it again,
Control
and you'll see.
F5.
Yeah, it's F5. The shortcut for refreshing is F5. Now since I was just pressing the function button.
Yeah.
here. Yeah. So as you can see, a new folder has been built here called node modules.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So this node module is the default name provided if you have run this dependencies.
okay, so I'm doing an npm install.
Yeah, yeah.
So whenever I install any dependency, it goes inside node modules folder.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you go down, we'll have grunt here,
Yeah, yeah.
and we have other
Folders also.
folders too. These are what comes by default.
Yeah.
As you can see, there are a lot of these.
Yeah, yeah. So Grunt might use those. Yeah.
Grunt is kind of dependent on
Yeah.
these.
So basically, if it's like UI5 library itself.
Yeah.
If you are creating a list, then list is it depend on label and all.
Yeah.
So you Grunt might be using some other library, and those libraries might be using some other libraries.
Yes.
And then, like now you have a bunch of
We
libraries.
have a complete tree of those libraries.
Yeah.
Yes. So, okay. Actually, I didn't get an error this time because even if I didn't use sudo here because I'm just installing it locally here.
Yeah.
That time I was installing it globally. That's why I
Yeah.
ran into that error.
Yeah.
So I was telling you another way of putting these dependency inside the dev dependencies property,
Mhm.
right? So I'm going to install grunt open UI5.
Yeah.
So what I can do is write npm install grunt dash open UI5. So if you just go here, you can see they have just given the command here.
Mhm.
Okay, and then I put a flag right here, dash dash save dash dev.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, so it will take some time to install it. Till then I can tell you something about this dash dash save dev.
Yeah.
So I'm appending it with dash dev so that it puts it inside dev dependencies
Yes.
property. Say I had just put minus minus save or dash dash save,
Mhm.
then it would have created another property called just dependencies,
Mhm.
and it would have put it inside that property.
Mhm.
Now the difference here is dev dependencies are for those plugins or libraries that you use only during development, that you don't want to expose during a production environment.
Okay.
So dependencies are the ones in which the plugins are there, which you will be using in the production.
In development environment, yeah.
Yeah.
So mainly what you're saying is this modules or the folder might not be present in the production version of it. Yeah.
Yes, these will not be present in the production version of it because you don't really need Grunt. And as you can see, it has
Updated.
automatically been
Yeah.
updated here with Grunt Open UI.
So it's
these
magic
are the
we
two
have.
two ways of doing it. So either you put it and install it, or you install it and it automatically gets placed there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's package.json.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next step, for example, now what we have done so far is we have npm. We using npm, we then put the CLI for Grunt, and also we have now Grunt Open UI5. So either you can use Grunt or Grunt UI5. Like both of them is not required anyone. So we were just showcasing one other way or the different version of Grunt specifically for UI5 which can be used. Now what is the next step to, for example, here we are just showing the minification of the extended libraries, right?
So the upcoming step would be the most important one, like creating the gruntfile.js.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are just going to create another file here. Since I'm in the root folder of my project, I'm just going to create a file here. So touch gruntfile.js. So this would create a file named gruntfile.js with no content inside it. You can obviously go to right click on it, go to new, and add a file here. Yeah. So we'll just refresh it so that this gruntfile.js comes here.
Yeah, the icons are pretty different.
Yeah, as you can see, gruntfile.js has the icon of grunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot really
zoom in,
but
it is actually
if you actually try it on your own Eclipse, you'll be able to see this. Okay, so gruntfile.js will be a function which would be exported. Okay, the way to do is it module dot exports equal function, and it will have grunt as a parameter here. That's all you need to do. You need to put every task inside this function. Now this last time we talked about AMD.
Yeah.
If you remember. So this is another way of defining a module that is in accordance with common.js.
Yeah.
That's what we basically use in Node.js.
Yeah.
And since Grunt is dependent on npm Node, it follows a similar module definition.
Yeah. So basically this will be definition of the modules, and then those modules is actually activities which Grunt performs. And then these will be the all activities which will be which you can automate. Like for example, I build one version of the libraries and I want to just ship it,
Yes.
or maybe just make it ready for the testing or production, and then I just run this particular JavaScript file and it kind of prepares.
Yes.
And then I think I can also skip some of the steps by the CLI, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first thing that we are going to do here is initialize the configuration for Grunt. So the command is, or the statement here is grunt.init config, and then you put in all the parameters here. So the parameter here that would go is maybe Open UI5 theme, or like the one that we are going to use here, Open UI5 preload.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to copy and paste.
Okay, so this will be the configuration which will be in object.
Yes, this is something that will tell Grunt that this is what that needs to be run.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Then it will have a lot of properties here. Now, since we are working with library.js here and not component.js, so we are just going to reference it with library. Okay, and then it will have options. So options would contain, the first thing that it would contain is resources. Resources basically tells you where the source files are.
Yeah. So in UI5 application, if you go in the debug mode, you will find an extra folder which is created while you're using it and might not be present when you are actually developing it in Eclipse. And that is where all the libraries are present.
Yes.
So we are going to add this there, right?
Yeah. So inside resources, I would tell the first property CWD. What CWD is like it asks you where is the main content of your app.
Yeah.
So it's web content here. So this folder right here.
So in this scenario, I think.
Yeah, in this scenario, if you are using the web IDE, it would be web app instead of web content.
Okay.
So web content. And then we are going to give the source path of the files where I have created my own JavaScript libraries.
Yeah.
So it's ellipse.js and library.js. So source would be a array of files. Like you can put in more and more number of files. If you have multiple folders, you'll need to reference to all of them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's inside my/own/ since I have two JavaScript files, I know that it is ending with .js. So I'm just going to write start.js. I could also have separated it into ellipse.js and library.js too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So resources are done. So the next thing is, where should the destination be? So destination would be web content again, because I want it inside the same folder.
Yeah.
Because that's where it will be referencing it from.
Yeah.
Yeah, as defined in our index.html. And since I have already given my/own/start.js, so my/own would automatically be appended to to the destination. It will be right after the destination.
Okay. So I think it will be putting the library.payload inside the my.own.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is like the path where it should put it. All the files which are being to be made. Yeah.
So next is compress. Compress is what
we are doing here.
Minification is,
yeah.
or uglify.
Yeah. So this is the only task which we will showcase here, maybe, just to keep it simple.
You can just simply put it as true. It can take Boolean values. It can take string. It can take other object too. If you go down here to compress, so it specifies that the type is Boolean or object. The default value is true. So if it is a JavaScript, then it is minified using UglifyJS 2. If it is XML, then it is minified using pretty data.
Okay, so these are libraries itself?
These are yes, this is libraries. Okay.
Yeah, maybe I think you can click it and you can kind of, it will link it to another GitHub page of UglifyJS. Yeah. So specifically, you can individually you can use uglify.js
Yes.
just to minify or uglify your libraries, and then Grunt is kind of using it to make the uglification. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Grunt is a combination. It's kind of the root which kind of can handle everything. So you don't have to really handle multiple things individually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, you can just use uglify.js, uglify.js if you want to.
Yeah,
But it has been packaged nicely inside this.
Yeah.
So, you don't really need to do anything. You just need to pass a true value
True,
to compress.
yeah.
That's all you need to do.
What more you need? What more?
Yeah.
Or you just want to say it will happen automatically.
Okay. So once you have given this, what you also need to specify after options is libraries. So you can just give the path here, or it will just automatically take the path. So you can also set it to true.
Yeah.
And well, that's all there is to initialization of the configuration. Okay. So the next thing that you are going to do here is, till now Grunt doesn't really know that open UI5 underscore preload. Where does it come from?
Okay, so
Yeah,
we need to actually
so
link it. Maybe.
We need to link it basically.
Okay, yeah.
So what the next command that we are going, the next statement that we are going to write is grunt.load npm tasks.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Since this has been installed using npm package manager, that's why this command load npm tasks.
Yeah.
Okay. So inside this, you'll just put grunt open UI5. Yeah, that's the name. So that's all you need to do. Okay. So you can just save it, and let's see the magic now. We just
I think one more step which we need to also do is register the task for it.
Yeah, I was going to show it in the next step.
Okay.
How to reduce your task even more.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you can do here is grunt open UI5 underscore preload.
Yeah.
So this will go inside open UI5 preload and run this task basically that we have defined right here.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
it says
done.
And it says file web content my own library preload.js created with 2 files.
Okay.
And as you can see, the size has been reduced from 1.67 kilobytes to 1.08 kilobytes.
Okay. So there has been some reduction, not maybe minor.
Yes, there's a minor reduction, so you might not see a huge change in the loading of my web page. But if you have created a very huge library,
huge library or multiple small files,
yes, then you'll see a drastic change in the size.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I go to own and just refresh this folder, I'll have library preload.js too.
Yeah.
And if you go inside this, my /own/ellipse.js has been minified here right into one line.
Yeah, it's too much scrolling right. Yeah.
Similarly, library.js has been minified here
in one line. So your entire months of work is one line.
Okay. So let's go here. Just refresh this page.
Yeah, I think then would not be a significant change in the speed of loading a web page, because it would be if there are a lot of files, or maybe the file size is pretty big.
But the important thing that I want you to see here is, it searched for library preload.js and got it. It did not go ahead and looked for library preload.json or library.js.
Yeah.
That kind of saves a small amount of time, like just a milliseconds, but it does. So it kind of speeds it up a bit more. Similarly, you can perform similar tasks for library.css. Now, if you have your own CSS file, since we haven't made our own CSS file, we kind of don't need it, basically.
Yeah. So I think here in our component, we are actually rendering it plainly in the browser itself and writing the CSS there itself.
Yes.
But when you are actually creating some of the component and have library.css file just for those components, for example, page or maybe list, those have different CSS in itself.
Yes.
On these cases, or maybe themes, specifically to themes.
Yeah, and you can use a preprocessor like CSS preprocessor, basically like less.
Yeah, yeah.
And what Grunt does is it also helps you compile less into a CSS file,
Mhm.
and then you can minify the CSS file again.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So all you need to do is write a less file, and obviously writing a preprocessor is way easier than writing the complete CSS.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that yeah,
Yes.
that saves time. So,
So
till this time, I think we have completed the steps where what we have is we have a proper
Yeah.
minified library, what we extended in the previous section, and I think that's what is one first step. Now, once these libraries are kind of increased, then you might feel the need of Grunt or the task which you are performing to really push these libraries to
Yeah.
production. Then you might need the you might require Grunt because when you are actually doing it for UI5 libraries, there will be hundreds of files which need to be done, and then there will be MBs of data which is kind of been compressed or reduced.
Yes.
So it makes sense there, even if it's a slight reduction here, like only 50 kilobyte.
50
But
KB maybe, yes.
yeah, but combinedly those small files adds on into like 500 files.
Yes.
1000 files are there.
Yeah, it Grunt also helps you, combine multiple JavaScript files into one JavaScript file, and then you
Yeah.
can just minify that single JavaScript file so that only a single JavaScript file needs to be loaded there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we have come to this short webinar. Yeah, but then
exactly.
at the end,
Another thing that I also want to show you here is it has only loaded library preload.js. It has not even looked for ellipse.js like we had in the last time.
yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it has kind of combined those two files into one single file,
Mhm.
library preload.js, and we are just using it. So, it doesn't need to load multiple files here too.
Yeah. So one thing which you might really see when you are debugging in your UI5 application is when you are actually looking to the network tab, and you can see a lot of library.preload.js is actually loaded
Yes.
while your application is bootstrapping UI5 application.
You can
Then
see.
now you can imagine like why why those libraries are present, because you are imagining that some page.js will load, or maybe some list.js will load, or visualization.js will load, but it's only library.preload.js.
Preload.js, yes.
It's very difficult to pronounce.
Yeah. it's a tongue twister basically.
Yeah, yeah. So
but I would also like to show just one more thing
Yeah, yeah.
here. The register task method.
yeah,
That's how you kind of separate like what task do you want to run in development mode and what task do you want to run in production mode.
yeah.
So what you do is write grunt dot register task,
Mhm.
and then you give it a name. If you give it default,
Okay, it's like okay. Mhm.
comma, and then you give a array of all the tasks that you need to perform here. So if it's open UI5 preload,
Mhm.
if I save it, and if I just say I delete library preload.js here from here, okay, and if I just run grunt,
Okay.
then it will
Mhm.
again create the same thing, because by default I have asked it to perform open UI5 preload task.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Say now you want it to be run only in the development environment.
So okay, so what need to be done? So in the development environment, the only library preload will be loaded.
Yes.
Yeah, and then
and say I also write another one.
okay.
I write another register task. Call it production.
Okay, product. Okay.
Okay. Say in development mode, no task needs to be run since I
Okay.
only have one task.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I save it. If I do, let's remove library preload.js.
Okay.
Okay. If I do a grunt dev,
Uh-huh.
see nothing has been done
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah,
no
yeah.
task has
Mhm,
been
mhm.
assigned here. Now if I do a grunt production, then you'll see
Okay,
that library preload.js has been
Created.
created here.
Yeah. So basically, what we are doing here is we are creating this grunt file in such a way that you don't need to really have a different grunt file for production or development. Yeah, you can just tell that, okay, if I require this for the development and I will run this command with one parameter added, then just do this activities.
Exactly.
And if I'm doing it for sandbox or production or any other systems, you can also have this for multiple system. It can happen that you want some of the changes in the version. If you have a different application in one particular landscape and you want one version of the library is there.
Yes.
So it is, I think, a lifesaver in a very complicated or big project where you don't have, I think it's so much easier if you are a senior developer or an architect, you define this gruntfile.js and you assign the activity to a developer who don't need to know exactly all the complicated activities which has been performed in the grunt. I think that is to be. I think these activities are performed by people who are senior level developers. But even if you are kind of getting started with UI5, we have shown it to you what actually goes behind this.
Like if you are an enthusiast and you like really wish to contribute to these open source libraries by adding your own tasks.
Yeah.
You know, if you just go back to Grunt's main page.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you can just find all the kind of tasks that you can perform. Like there's a link right here. Yeah, Grunt plugins.
Yeah, so you can even extend this plugin and kind of contribute there. Yeah, and I think
So
can we
these are
sell
all
these
the-
plugins or is it all open source free?
It's open source.
Yeah, so for the name of open source, because a lot of things, even Manas's machine is running in Linux. So yeah, so in a way we are open source enthusiasts and contributing is making it much little better. And then overall, if there are a lot of people who are making it a little better, it is much better.
Yes.
Yeah. So on the spirit of open source, we can close this webinar then. Maybe.
Yes.
So also make sure to check our Node.js course because what we have done here in the Node.js is we have shown you step by step from beginning to end because Node.js is one of the technology which will be required in even enterprise SAP world and also in other technologies because most of the world is kind of either moving from major shift is happening from Java to JavaScript because of a microservice architecture coming into picture. So Node.js and AngularJS UI are coming and picking up very rapidly. And if you are from enterprise background, our courses are best suited because we have created those courses keeping in mind mostly for enterprise developer.
Yes.
Web developer community have a lot of courses, but they don't really cover those aspects which will be required in enterprise. And you can use the coupon webinar 80 and this will actually give you 80% off on those courses. So I think at this point of time, we quickly wrapped up the entire Grunt.js webinar and it was kind of, I think I understood a lot of things, a new thing, yeah. So we can catch up in the next week where we will be showing you one
Something
more
new.
cool and new thing.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us for the webinar and we will see you in the next week.
Good night.
Good night, bye-bye, happy coding.